to
9.
I was not elected to watch my people suffer and die while you discuss this invasion in a committee. I may have given more energy to that than Natalie Portman ever did. Behold, the ultimate power of the Countdown to 9 podcast. Coming at you once again. This time, we're getting into it. Our breakdowns of each film leading up to this December 20th and the release of Star Wars Episode 9. Paul Preston and the Movie Guys here with you alongside me.
Sean Blodgett.
Sean Blodgett of Creative Motion Entertainment.
Yep.
CreativeMotionEntertainment.com. If you want to go find out everything Sean's all about. We are in the Mighty Admirals Club here in Burbank, California, and today's monthly check-in for how much closer we are to Episode 9. As of this taping, Sean, 40 weeks and 6 days.
Wow.
We'll keep counting it down. It'll always be a huge number.
Is it wrong that we're counting it down that much?
284 days. Same thing. Which sounds better? 284, I think. We promised you film recaps, analysis, opinions, interviews, guests, jokes, and more, and we are going to start that all off where the Star Wars universe starts off, with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Not the first Star Wars film, but the first chronologically in their universe, and then we will go forward chronologically from there. Now, just before we launch the sauce, however, quick plug. Please chime in your thoughts at themovieguys.net, at countdown9@gmail.com, or on social media, which includes facebook.com/countdown9, at countdown9 on Twitter and Instagram. And Sean, are there any updates on Episode 9?
The last update that I saw was the picture that they released with John Boyega and Daisy Ridley.
That's the end of an Oscar Isaac. That's the end of Principal Photography.
It was the
right?
end of Principal Photography. Actually, I think that image might have come out around the time we released this, because I remember posting something about it.
Oh, yeah, it's out.
Yeah.
Remember when there was like 3 years between Star Wars movies?
Yes.
Now they're going to crank post out in
a short amount of time.
9 months.
Yes.
Yeah, which will be effects heavy.
Yes.
You know, they must. Of course, they're probably doing it all along.
Yeah.
I remember when they first introduced the Guardians of the Galaxy at Comic-Con, and we got a little something, and it was the most blazing hot, awesome, 3-minute sizzle reel. I'm like, you're in the middle of shooting. They clearly took the shots they liked.
Yes,
went
and did
full
all the
effect on
CG
them.
for that. Yeah.
It looked like finished. There were no temp effects.
Right.
It was super impressive. So yeah, they're working as they go. But either way, 9 months to get the whole Megillah together.
That shot actually brought something up for me, and since we're talking about a countdown to 9, we'll talk a little bit about 9. Not that we know anything about it, but it got me thinking. At the end of The Last Jedi, there's about 50 rebels left.
Yeah.
At this point, and the Hasniat system is gone, the Republic is basically gone. This came up for me. What do they want now? I mean, seriously, you got 50 people, one of which is maybe a Jedi.
Yeah.
What are we going for here? What's the objective? I mean, how far are they going to jump ahead? I'm just very interested to find out.
Yeah. Maybe they'll jump ahead another 30 years.
Well, it got me thinking because of that image of John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, and they were obviously on some kind of desert locale or something.
When in doubt.
Yeah, and it might have just been, who knows when that moment takes place in the film or whatever it is. But it got me thinking actually about one of my favorite series, which is Battlestar Galactica. And I loved what they did with that reimagining and everything they did. And the ending, ultimately they wanted to get to this place where they could live and they could have a life and be free. And it's like, what do the rebels really want? What is it we're really after here ultimately, if everything else is now gone and there's this the ultimate power is, I don't know.
I think I've said that before, that I don't know what I'm going in to be excited about seeing.
Yeah.
Like last time it was like, oh man, Luke's got to beat up Darth. Oh, Han and Leia got to get together.
Right.
Oh, we got to defeat the Emperor. There's a lot to do.
Right.
And now I go and going, what are we doing? More Poe?
Yeah.
Who you could take out of the last 2 movies and it would mean nothing?
My hope is actually that there will be some way that we're going to see like a bunch of Force ghosts come to the front, and there's going to be some sort of huge battle that involves like, I don't know, just multiple levels of the Force and just craziness, awesomeness going on. Just lots of, but not so crazy like a DC movie.
No, yeah. When in doubt, they just CGI the end. It's noisy.
Yeah, to the point where you don't know what's happening, and I don't want that. I want something specific. But it did get me thinking. Like, what do they really want at this point with the little that they have? What is it going to be? I don't know.
A trailer will give us a hint.
Yeah,
which we don't have yet. But stay here for updates when there's a teaser, when there's a trailer, when there's a poster or anything.
Anything, yeah.
A title. We'll chime in.
We'll take anything at this point. For God's sakes, can you give us something?
Give us something.
I don't know why I became Doc Brown, but it just... Marty, give us something!
But first, first things first, what is the Phantom Menace all about?
Well, hey, you say you're a Star Wars fan. Do you like Darth Vader? I love Darth Vader, dude. The helmet and the cape with the sword, that's great, man. Is he in the first movie? Yeah, in the first movie, you get to see him as a little kid.
Maybe not what Patton Oswalt wanted, but that's what the plot is about anyway. So let's get everyone caught up to speed on what happened in Star Wars Episode 1 with our patented Countdown to 9 recap. First up, the scroll. Now let's go through it. Sean, with your... Make a noise that reflects your emotion as this goes along. That's what I'll be doing. Here we go. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. Already? The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems.
Oh, sorry, now.
Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships. Ooh. The greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights. Woo! The Guardians of Peace and Justice in the Galaxy to settle the conflict.
Okay. Right out of the gate, even though I was making jokes at the beginning, I do want to have a little defense of this scroll. Because as I was watching the film again, and I was watching this scroll and seeing it later, and I'm thinking about these words, and I'm thinking, okay, how does a war start? How does a battle start? I mean, what is war ultimately usually about? It's usually about power. It's about wanting to be in charge.
And in America, it was about taxes.
Right.
So I guess there you go.
Right. So, I mean, when you really think about this opening scroll, in a lot of ways, it's actually kind of a brilliant setup. The problem is the wording. That's really the problem. If there was some way to simplify it, I don't know exactly what that would have been. But
while the universe tottered on the brink of instability. You know, it really, and that kind of sums up that all these galactic senators are not compromising or agreeing. But, you know, getting to the heart of, there was a trade federation and there was taxation on trade routes.
Right.
Pick up from there.
A long time ago, in a far-off galaxy, a young boy was born without being fathered.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
It is a miracle.
The young boy is a product of the Force.
Yay!
Well, not really the Force, but midichlorians.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
Wait, the Force?
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
Oh, thanks for that.
Through a series of events, this boy, Anakin Skywalker, or Annie,
It's the hard knock life for
Not
us.
that Annie, stop it.
helps a band of characters, including the Jedi and the Queen of Naboo, restore their ships so they can get to Coruscant, the capital of the Republic, and warn them of the threat to Naboo by the evil Trade Federation.
Sean, I'd like to take a second here to remind everyone of just how terrifying the Trade Federation was by playing a couple of clips of their menacing dialogue.
Are you brain dead? Close the blast door! That will hold them. Victory!
They sound like George Takei with a sock in his mouth.
The boy is selected by Qui-Gon Jinn, the Jedi Master of the group, played by Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson is my shiznit! Woo!
Who is right? to become a Jedi Knight because he senses great untapped power within the boy.
Probably not that power. That's a different power. Well, once the group reaches Coruscant,
The abdominal snowman. Abominable.
Coruscant.
Abominable.
Coruscant?
Abominable.
Coruscant. They are faced with bureaucracy, red tape, and more bureaucracy, so they decide to take matters into their own hands. And with the aid of 2 Jedi that accompany them, they set off to make matters right on Naboo by facing the Trade Federation themselves.
Are you brain dead? Close the blaster!
We've heard enough of that.
They enlist the help of the Gungan army via their friend, Jar Jar Binks.
Me so horny. Me so horny.
That's not him. It was close, though. Here he is.
Oh, muy, I love you.
And so they unravel an elaborate plan to take back control of Naboo when they are not only faced with a vast droid army, but find out they must now deal with an ancient evil Sith Lord.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
The 2 Jedi face off against the Sith Lord, while the others fight the oppressors. Here's a clip.
Good prevails over evil. The Sith Lord is killed.
Yay! But our good guys pay the price in the form of losing the great Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Here are his final words.
Promise me you will train the boy.
Yes, Master.
He is the chosen one. He will bring balance. Train him.
And of course, he's wrong. Glad we rooted for him the whole movie.
And finally, now that peace has been restored on Naboo, a celebration ensues. Which includes the newly elected leader of the Senate, Chancellor Palpatine, who promises to bring peace to the Republic.
There we go. That's Star Wars Episode 1 of Phantom Menace. In case you never saw it, it's like you did. It's like you just did.
Tried to do my best movie voice to add to the drama, you know.
It's good. I see a career in that. In a world populated with Gungans and pod racers.
Misa, say no!
Whatever Watto is.
Which, I actually like Watto. I think that character was one of the more interesting CG characters in the whole film. Just me? Okay.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of our timeline.
All right.
That was the beginning of the Star Wars timeline. What did you think when you first heard of the title? The Phantom Menace. Because you were waiting for this movie for 16 years.
I remember I was in Studio City with my then girlfriend, now wife, driving, I think, on Laurel Canyon. And we heard it on the radio, and I went, huh. I was really kind of disappointed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, you know, it was such a throwback to me. I don't know, the word phantom, it's a throwback to a different time of film, a different time of storytelling, which I get it. I mean, it's, you know, George Lucas does that. I mean, there is actually so much throwback in Phantom Menace in general. But I was not, it did not excite me. I will say that. And right out of the gate, I was like, oh, Palpatine?
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a kind of a sense of like, oh, okay, maybe I
Well, I mean, he's got to assume some mantle of power as the Emperor.
Right, yeah.
We got to see that.
Right. What about you?
I was fine. Star Wars blank was cool. Star Wars vanilla pudding. I'm in. Star Wars. Let's.
Where do I sign? Where's the
Star
signature
Wars.
paper? Star Wars. Yes,
Star Wars.
of course.
Here come the otters.
Right.
I'm in. I don't care because it said Star Wars at the first part.
Right.
And then the trailer.
You know what though? That's an interesting point though, because at that juncture, we were starved for Star Wars content. Yeah. I mean,
and by the time Solo: A Star Wars Story comes out, you're not.
Yeah.
And then that movie paid the price.
I actually think that was a big mistake by Disney was the year after year of releasing things. Even as a big fan, I kind of was like, you know what? I don't want this to be so back to back. I want it.
And who defies the odds? Marvel, because we're talking on the weekend that Captain Marvel opened to $440 million worldwide. It's already going to be at $500 million, and it's the 21st of these movies, which they release 3 a year.
Right.
So Screw us.
Yeah, never mind. Just go find something else. No, don't.
Let's
Please
just
keep
say
watching.
Solo was a speed bump. Or like you've said it on here before, I think Solo, the reaction to Solo was really a reaction to Last Jedi.
I think it was less of a reaction to. I mean, it was because of The Last Jedi, but I think it was the fans wanting to make a statement to say, just so you know, we do matter.
Yeah.
Because,
like you said, with The Force Awakens earning what it did to become the biggest movie of all time, we were starved.
Yeah. Well, at that time, we were starved, and we were starved for a Star Wars that reminded us of Star Wars, that reminded us of why we loved Star Wars. Because as much as I love the prequels for what they are, they're not the Star Wars we grew up with, really. We're at a different age, different time. And actually, it's something that I started thinking about a lot in watching this movie again in preparation for this episode was my son, who's 6, watches this and laughs at stuff that I'm like, oh my God, why is this happening? But he loves it. And even my daughter, who's now 10, loves, and I'm like, that's cool that they love this, and that maybe there's stuff in this that I don't get because I'm just older, I guess.
Well, there's outside of the hinting at where it was going in Return of the Jedi, there's no precedent for all the wacky. There's humor. Han Solo's hilarious. R2 does funny stuff. C-3PO's a big stuffy droid. And even Leia has some shots that are funny, but it wasn't just goofy to the detriment of the character or plot we eventually saw.
Well, and that's a good point. From a writing point of view, there are things that really frustrate me. Literally in Act 1, when they meet Jar Jar, and they're like, and he's like, oh, we should go to Gungan City. And then he literally says one line later, on second thought, no. What?
Why are we writing this?
You can say I would take you somewhere, but I can't go because I've been banned or whatever,
Right.
But to say, yeah, let's go. Oh no, let's not. It's like doing improv with somebody that's denying the whole time. It's just like, look, the sky is orange. No, it's red. I'm just done. I'm leaving.
Well, he'd be denying himself. Look, the sky is red. I mean red.
Just it's ridiculous. Yeah.
And it should be noted that you brought up this interesting point. As of today's taping, it is the 20th. It's very specific. Not only the 20th anniversary of the film, 20th anniversary to the day today of the release of the second trailer of The Phantom Menace.
Yes.
Now, I saw the first one on Entertainment Tonight. That's where they were debuting it on television, and I recorded it on a VHS tape.
Oh, yeah.
And then I could just rewind it and watch it over and over again. And I took full analysis, saw the dual, the dual lightsaber.
Yes.
I saw the desert. Are they back in Tatooine or what's going on? Ooh, cool new ships, So that's how you had to explore it 20 years ago on VHS tape.
Yeah, that's right.
Off a recording
right.
of Entertainment Tonight, which, God help me, even then I was like, why am I watching this show? But just terrible show. But anyway, so they set off to make the thing, and it's a $115 million budget.
Which, now you found that number. That's what's on the internet.
Yeah.
I was watching the behind the scenes again, which was very interesting, not having watched it in a long time. And they say $50 million. Now, I wonder if the $50 million is
wrong?
No, I wonder if it's production.
Yeah.
And does not include marketing and all of that stuff.
That'd be way cheap, though. You talk about the CGI, groundbreaking CGI, coupled with the sets they built. And then all the actors, and then it's.
So there's an interesting moment in the behind the scenes where they bring out all these boards with storyboard images and all this stuff, and Lucas's job in front of his entire group, ILM, is to essentially with a highlighter that's pink and a highlighter that's yellow, go, this is real, this is CG. This is real, this is CG. This is, like every single shot. And how quickly he does it, you really do see his genius. There is genius in him for sure.
Yeah, of course.
And then when you start to hear, was it John Knoll, I think, who is they're talking about, we don't know exactly how we're going to do some of these shots.
Hey.
I mean, there was so much that they did. They went in going, I don't know how we're actually going to do this.
But that's not unfamiliar ground. James Cameron did that pretty much every movie. Here's what I want. Go make it happen.
Yeah.
And they went, okay.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we have a Terminator walking out of the fire as a metal man turning into Robert Patrick.
Right.
Never could have done that before.
Right.
Well, except for where he demanded the water beast in the abyss.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So these groundbreaking filmmakers, that's how they operate.
I mean, there's so much about the film that was groundbreaking. I mean, I know we're going to get more into the technology, but, even just in the editing of it, there was some stuff that I don't think had ever been done before.
Who did edit it? Like the editors and the
I know I think Ben Burt did some of it. He was always the sound engineer and recordist and, brilliant in his own right. I mean, he's the reason we have and, all the other, sound effects that we've come to love from the movies. But I know he edited some of it. And there's shots of him working with George and doing post and all that stuff.
But Marsha Lucas and Richard Chew and then the other guy from the original Star
Yes.
Wars. And as we went along, those franchise guys, like even with all the Marvel movies, who edits and shoots them, that they don't have quite the name attached that you get with like the prestige pictures, who shoots The Revenant or who shoots this kind of thing.
Well, I also think that the editors are like the unsung heroes. I mean, you also doing post and myself doing a ton of post work. I mean, at the end of the day, the editing room is where the story gets put together, and it's honestly where the film is either made or broken. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Speaking of editing, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but the one I was watching in preparation for this episode, the pod race, was the extended pod race, and that is definitely longer. It is the extended pod race is a longer section. There's so much more setup. In a lot of ways, emotionally, it plays better. But it's just so long. It's just so long.
But it has my favorite moment in the whole film when they're flying along and suddenly sand people come out of nowhere and they're taking pot shots at the pod racers. I think that's the greatest thing in the world.
The Tusken Raiders.
They just pop up and like, why are they there? Just to kill people.
Yes,
I think that's great.
Yeah.
In fact, we're going to get to how there's just not enough danger or fear in this movie or from the villains. I mean, just to have guys come up, start taking people out, the best.
Yeah.
And they just seem to enjoy it. They're like, they're doing their cheer thing. All right.
I like that they did the,
Yeah, you were saying that it was like Ben-Hur, though. And it's
and the other thing that came up for me today because I was listening to
I never would have put those two movies in
right. I know.
But how should one?
I mean, I think it's that comparative of the race and the chariots and the, you know what I mean, and you're rooting and the stadium and I mean all of that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I didn't even, I mean, I sort of put together, but now it really solidified it for me. I was listening to it in headphones and the sound design, the amount of sound design that is like, I mean, all of this stuff that's going on. Yeah, I mean. I mean, whether you like the movie or not, you got to at least like props to all the sound design for it. I mean, it's just incredible.
I'm sure
and it's the greatest race of all time. I mean, I think in his mind, that's what he was trying to create was like, and I was watching it going, how else do you set this character up as a great pilot, as someone who has Jedi instincts? I mean, maybe we could come up with a bunch of ideas and whatever, but it's interesting, right? Like he's got a race to get these parts to save these people so that they can get out of here and go save their planet. Like, on paper, that kind of sounds awesome,
All right. Give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, that was an exhilarating sequence, no doubt.
Yeah.
Except for the dumb play-by-play announcers.
Yeah, and some of the kind of cartoony characters that are I mean... Yeah, just not
which we didn't get in like Return of the Jedi. Even in Return of the Jedi, which was the start of the goofy zone for a lot of Star Wars, they have that race through Endor on the bikes without any goofy stuff. They're just kind of chasing.
I mean, there's the whole sequence where the Ewoks are on the back. All that stuff is happening. So
touche, my friend.
Yes.
Again, as I said, it was getting weird then. Where did you?
I need a bell. I need a bell when I get a touche. Like, ding! All right, I got one.
Hey,
I got one.
you can have as many as you like. I've blocked that out of my mind, apparently. I just remember Luke and Leia on the run from stormtroopers. And it was pretty badass.
Well, that is, yeah. Agreed.
Then it got weird.
Yeah.
Where did you see the film?
Not where I wanted to.
Not in the biggest theater?
No. My parents were living up in the Antelope Valley at the time, and I happened to be visiting them on the day it was released, and I thought, my mom took me to see the original. This might be cool to go see this with her. And that part was cool. It was neat to be there with my mom, and my girlfriend was there, and all that stuff. And that was kind of a fun moment. And I just, in general, just seeing Star Wars up on the screen again and hearing that music again, I mean, that was worth the price of admission. And honestly, I was just excited. Even after it was done, I was like, I just saw Star Wars. Like, that was great. I don't even care if it wasn't that great. I'm excited.
I think that was the first time they started doing pre-midnight screenings of movies, because midnight is technically the day the movie opens, but now you can go at like 6, 7.
Right.
6 would be like the fan event. You're an hour earlier, which is weird because you get out and everyone's still in the movie. You can't brag to anybody.
Right.
But the 7 or 8 o'clock, those type of screenings started happening right around then, because I remember I went to a 7 o'clock the night before it opened, and it was a sea of robes and lightsabers and stuff, and it was at the McClure Court Theater in Chicago. So I did see it in one of the best theaters in town.
Nice.
And it was, so all the technical aspects of it that were supposed to work did.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Lucasfilm responsible for, THX and, all the great, sound that we, enjoy in movies now. A lot of that stuff I think was really honed in on these types of films, where you're like, oh, I want this to be on this channel and this speaker and that, I mean, again, whether or not you love the film, got to show some respect for the technical work.
Yeah, if you go on to themovieguys.net, my original review is there, and it's kind of the good and the bad. It's like a half and half, and I think it ended up with like a 2-star review or something. Because I did come out of the pod races exhilarated, and it was thrilling to see the 2-on-1 lightsaber battle at the end. And then... But there was really, let's get into this now.
Yeah.
The lack of threatening villain. Now, it's a Phantom Menace, so Palpatine isn't going to show all his cards. But still, there's a Sith Lord running around with a dual lightsaber, and he was sort of bad, but he was sort of ancillary.
Yep.
So otherwise, you have the Trade Federation.
Which is not very intimidating at all.
And robots.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, swapping out robots, I think, is Lucas's way to kid-friendly the whole thing.
Yep.
Because we kill a whole ton of robots, no big loss of life, no big... he even took a moment in Jedi to show, look, an Ewok died.
Yeah.
Let's cry. Let's have a moment,
Yeah.
because there were real stakes at hand. Well, there weren't any.
Yeah.
In these Roger robots.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, to me, the robots were the G.I. Joe of this movie. Did you watch G.I. Joe as a kid?
Grunt?
Yeah, they were. They were like Grunt. They were like, yeah. No, I mean, did you ever watch G.I. Joe as a kid? And then, every time a plane would, and then, a parachute would go.
A-Team, same thing.
Which is one of the reasons as a kid I got into Robotech. I don't know if you ever watched that. But, I remember, that was anime, and that was from Japan. And, people, actually died. And you're like, holy crap, somebody just died on a cartoon. That's incredible. And so for me, that I agree. I mean, that the stakes were odd, and as I was working on this and writing the synopsis, one of the things that came up for me was this idea of how could you clarify this storyline, because it really is a story about a kid who wasn't fathered, so he's sort of this holy child who gets found and then helps these people so that they can do something good. There's a bigger story that's really interesting in there that didn't get clarified.
Yeah, and he accidentally blows up a Trade Federation ship. Even his win is without real danger. This movie comes off the heels of Independence Day, and I had a problem with that at Independence Day as well. The movie starts out with billions of people being killed, most likely. Maybe, if not hundreds of millions.
Right.
Either way, at the end of the movie, when Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum are smoking cigars and cracking jokes, I'm kind of like, we should have a little more weight to the death that occurred here. And when you guys defeat them with a virus, it should mean more. So having robots that mean nothing and a kid accidentally doing stuff. The real drama was in the fight,
lightsaber battle.
The lightsaber battle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually would have liked to have seen, and this is actually one of my problems with the prequels in general. They're constantly referring to this kid and then later Anakin as he gets older and all the stuff that he's so powerful. And he's so powerful. Is he? I mean, I don't see the power. One of the things I love about the Disney Star Wars movies with Kylo Ren is at least we do see some power. I mean, in Force Awakens, right out of the gate, he friggin' freezes a laser ray. Like that's awesome. Let's see some power. I mean, in Episode 1, I'm like, okay, so he's really good at piloting this thing that looks really dangerous. Okay, I guess I can get behind that. That's kind of cool. I would have liked to have seen him have a Force moment, in blowing up the ship, or I don't know, some kind of he uses the Force in some way, not even knowing. I mean,
well, if you ever saw the Phantom edit or the second one, Attack of the Phantom,
yes, I did.
The
I love them.
Re-edits of them, he adds those in.
Yeah,
like there are moments where Anakin hears a sound and reacts a certain way that someone's coming. Take the sound out. He's a Jedi. He just knows they're coming.
Yeah,
and he reacts, and it enhances his powers, which is important.
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
Especially when you have trade federations and Senate debates, you got to make the other shit interesting.
Yes,
so
agreed.
And I think that's probably why he had comic relief in the form of Jar Jar, but I don't know. Make the trade stuff more interesting, and then we need less of that.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I did see from my original review, I said, wouldn't Anthony Hopkins be great in the Jedi Council? And not playing a character. Just we have Yoda, Mace Windu, and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, I agree.
That would be
that would be interesting.
A formidable council.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. And then someone else mentioned, why doesn't Qui-Gon fade away when he dies?
There is definitely an inconsistency with the Jedi deaths. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, he is the one who supposedly tells them how to connect with the Force after death and keep their spirit, whatever, their consciousness, intact. I mean, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, I mean, that's the thing.
Someone said unfinished business.
Yeah.
That he doesn't fade away. Ben Kenobi wrapped up his time on Earth. Same with eventually Luke.
Right.
Or not Earth, whatever, wherever he was. Where you're on the planet, amongst us. So then once you do that,
Tatooine,
you can fade
right?
away.
Yeah.
That's a whole theory, of course. But I do like...
they do burn him. There is a bookend to that. And there's something interesting that Lucas says in the behind the scenes where he, and he's a little nervous about doing this movie too. I mean, I think he's, even in the midst of seeing it, he's questioning things a little bit. But he said something that I thought was interesting, which was... each film is kind of like a stanza of a poem. And if you look at them in that way, this film starts out with a Jedi who dies, and they burn him. They burn the body as a sort of whatever the Jedi funeral is, sort of a respectful burial, right? They're all there, and they're showing their respects and all this stuff. And Return of the Jedi ends with him burning the body of his dead father, and giving him essentially a respectful Jedi funeral. So we do have a bookend with that. I mean, there in a lot of ways that is a setup and a payoff.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is the inconsistency isn't necessarily an awful thing. It just is.
Yeah.
They die in battle. They die by their own will.
Yeah.
It could mean different things happen to them.
Well, I also think that would it speak to their level of connection with the Force, power in the Force?
Yeah. But there is one way they did show how strong the Jedi are in Phantom Menace. Just by the fact that, and Adam Witt of the Movie Guys brought this up to me years ago, he said, there's a problem in the galaxy. Naboo is a planet that's being invaded. It's a sovereign thing. Send in 2 Jedi.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's enough. That's plenty.
Yeah.
We don't need to send an army.
Right.
2
Right.
guys, they got it. Good
Right.
enough. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Yeah.
So let's go to the casting, because when the casting came out, it certainly had pedigree.
Yep.
How did they all perform? What do you think? Liam Neeson.
Brilliant.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love Liam Neeson. I mean, Liam Neeson grounds so much. I was just watching a moment as I was prepping for this where there's the moment where he says to Anakin, you know, you're free, and he goes and gets ready and whatever. And there's a little scene with him and Shmi, which is an odd name, but he
Captain Hook's sidekick.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, funny, I didn't even think about that. But there's a scene he has with Shmi Skywalker, and he basically, you know, kind of puts his hand on her shoulder and is like, "Are you okay?" And it's a quick moment, but he plays it with such sincerity. And honestly, it's the sincerity that a lot of the film lacked in other performances, because there was stuff happening that was just so big and over the top,
Yes.
or so underplayed that you're like, it doesn't get any more subtle than what you're doing. You know.
Yeah, well, there was stuff going on at that dinner table with Liam Neeson and the family, but Jar Jar wouldn't stop with his antics.
Yes.
Again, it's the whether you create a character or not that looks or is realistic, it's the overacting that kills the CGI for me. That's why by the time we got Andy Serkis and Gollum, they were combining the technology with the good acting.
Right.
And then that continued through like Caesar. I think, you know, playing the still Andy Serkis, but he's the best. What are you going to do?
Right.
So, Ewan McGregor.
I think Ewan only gets better with the films. I mean, you know, Ewan is great in Phantom Menace. I certainly don't think it's his best of the three. But I think
the best of his career.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. But I will say this: he is one hell of a fighter. I mean, the fight choreography, and if you watch the behind the scenes and him rehearsing, that guy does not hold back. I mean, he goes full throttle in his rehearsals. I mean, he worked his ass off. And you can see it on the screen. I mean, you know, it's an awesome, awesome fight. And it's awesome really because of him, because Liam's fighting is good, but he's a little older. And so I think the style...
Ray Park is good.
And well, of course, Ray Park, I mean, he's brilliant and you know, almost goes without saying, but yes, it does.
Kind of what he's there to do.
Does need to be, does need to be said. But you know, Ewan McGregor isn't necessarily, you know, a swordsman. I'm sure he maybe studied it or whatever his, you know, career and training.
Yeah, what else has he done in the world of action? I mean, am I forgetting anything? There probably is something we're forgetting.
I'm sure there's stuff that we're forgetting.
Not much.
But certainly not like
a bunch of Danny Boyle movies.
Sword fighting.
Yeah.
Although the one story that comes up and everybody knows it, or at least fans know it, but the fact that he made lightsaber sounds makes me so happy.
Oh, did you really?
Oh, you haven't heard that story?
No.
Yeah, apparently George finally had to come to him and be like, yeah, we're gonna add those in post. Because we were all kids like watching these go. I mean, even now, my kids have lightsabers and they make sounds, and I'm like, oh, you guys are missing out. You know, we had to make the sounds, you know.
All right, here we go. Right?
This is a great score.
Oh, yeah, we didn't mention that. We should.
Yes.
Duel of the Fates quickly became one of the best.
It's one of the greatest
in the entire Star Wars canon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really good
it's
stuff.
It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. There's some other pretty music in the... I started listening to the soundtrack again and prep for this as well. And,
I mean, we'll get to this next month, but the love story is one of the worst parts of the trilogy, but the love story's theme is one of the best Williams tracks that there is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you listen to the Episode 2 soundtrack and then you listen to the Rogue One soundtrack, there's some lovely similarities that Michael Giacchino did. And I don't know if you're a fan of Giacchino, but
of course.
I love...
Up in The Incredibles, for sure.
I absolutely think that Rogue One is... I mean, I love John Williams, of course. I mean, he's John Williams. He's amazing. But, man, Giacchino did a great job on Rogue One. And I happen to know a little insight, and maybe a lot of people know this now, but they had a whole other score. And they literally changed it out about a month before they brought in Giacchino to replace the score for Rogue One. So I always thought that was really interesting, especially considering the fact that it's so damn beautiful.
Natalie Portman.
I want to say it's direction.
She's been more interesting. That's for sure.
Even as a kid,
the professional.
Brilliant. And I'm a little confused by her character, to be honest, in general, because later on she's just kind of this young lady. But in this, you know, I would not condone a course of action that would lead us to what? I mean, like, what? I don't. What is what?
They wanted, I guess, to be otherworldly and sort of regal, perhaps.
But
in
was
the
that?
Direction.
I mean, I guess maybe that was like part of. Was that part of what the regalness was? That they all must wear these crazy wigs and talk like this. You know, I mean, just it was. I just didn't quite get it, and there were times where I just felt like her performance was so subtle, and so muted. And I feel like, but I just feel like it was just direction because she's a brilliant actor.
Yeah, by the time you get to Leia, you've got a princess who is active,
right?
Right, and action based,
right.
But so eventually, it makes $474 million. So it's 14th place all time, and if you adjust it for inflation, it still only drops to 18th, where a lot of movies like Jurassic World is in the top 10 and then goes out of the top 20 entirely.
Yeah.
When you adjust for inflation.
Which, by the way, if they actually did make it for the $50 million that I heard in the behind the scenes, that's a pretty incredible thing. I mean, that's something that I did want to mention. It's one of the biggest independent films ever made. I mean, it was him. It's his money. Like, I'm going to do this, Now, I also think that created part of the problem. There's moments in the behind the scenes where he's talking about, look, if we get this technology figured out, if we get this right, people are going to want this for their movies. There's a part of me that feels like there's a little bit of a challenge in that because, on the one hand, you're thinking about your business. You're thinking about Lucasfilm. You're thinking about the future of this business. And that's cool. He needs to. That's his business. But are you thinking about that at the cost of story, at the cost of focusing on your film? Because when you're really immersed and really working on a film, what matters is the film. What matters is the story. What matters is what your objective is as a filmmaker, the story and the theme that you're trying to convey and say and make the audience feel. That's what matters. And the feel part, for a lot of us, I think, was what was missing. What are we supposed to feel? Because I realized watching it again, that's part of what we're missing is whose story is this really? Whose eyes are we really watching this through? When you go back and you look at the original Star Wars movie, it's a hero's journey. It's straightforward. There's other characters and we follow them in moments and stuff like that, but we're really watching Luke Skywalker.
And I was ready to watch Anakin. I was ready for the tragedy of it all, but it kind of got jumbled at a bunch of other nonsense.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's why when we were working on the synopsis, I went with this kind of concept of like, no, this is a story about this boy. That's what this is really supposed to be. This is a story about this boy who becomes the most evil thing in the universe. I mean, that, to me, is what's interesting about what Lucas did. He said, how do you take the most evil person in the world, because let's face it, Darth Vader is iconic evil, right? How do you take the most evil thing in the world and make them, I guess, relatable? Because at some point, every serial killer was a kid. Every person in prison for some horrible crime was a little innocent kid who didn't know that they were going to grow up necessarily. They didn't know they were going to grow up to do the horrible, heinous things that they did. That wasn't what they maybe set out to be or do.
So, good question about Lucas. Did he do that?
Did he achieve it?
Yeah. And we'll leave it there, ladies and gentlemen.
I think he did, to be honest.
Right.
I think he actually did achieve making him innocent.
That's for sure. I mean, he basically wanted him to be ripped from his mom, and that starts the path of the things that turn him.
Yeah. I would have, with a more capable actor, and I don't blame Jake Lloyd because he was a kid and he was cast in a role and he did his job to the best of his ability. If you look,
then he stopped.
Well, yeah, and I feel bad for him because the truth is he was put in a precarious position. I mean, if you look at the behind the scenes, I mean, of course he's a kid and he gets this incredible opportunity, and he's a kid. He doesn't really know Star Wars. I mean, he knows what he knows, but he's a kid. He got a big role, and he didn't have the experience or the training, even as a kid, I think, to do what he needed to do. There were a few kids that it was down to like 3 kids. There was one kid who, in particular, I think was a trained actor. And Lucas even says in the behind the scenes, he's like, I know if we hire this kid, he's going to hit all the beats and he's going to get all the moments and whatever. But this other kid is unpredictable. I think we should go with him. Because there was a quality to Jake in the auditions that was honest. And there's a few moments in the film where they got it. Unfortunately, it didn't come across most of the time. But there are a few moments where if you kind of check your ego at the door and you just kind of watch and see if you can find him, there's a few moments where he really is honest, and and you get, okay, I get this is why he got this. But the truth is, they needed the kid who could deliver take after take, because it's Star Wars and there's just too much going on around you to be teaching acting.
And we definitely don't have time to get into Ahmed Best, but the poor guy, his fallout after his time on set as Jar Jar Binks was brutal. And this was today, if he did this, the reaction on social media would be the worst thing ever. But it's bad enough he almost wanted to kill himself for this.
But if you look again, I go to the behind the scenes because there's a lot of honesty in there. He's really he's a good physical actor, and he did a lot of good physical. He did what he was asked.
Yeah.
He did what he was asked. Again, like Jake, honestly, this falls on Lucas's shoulders. Since we're talking about performances, I want to talk a little bit about editing, which we talked a little bit about, but there's an editing style that happens on this movie that I don't know had ever been employed on any other movie. And that is, they literally have moments, like let's say you have a wide shot and you've got multiple characters in a scene. There's a moment in the behind the scenes where George and Ben Bird are talking about this moment, and George likes the take with one of the actors in the scene, but he likes a different take with another actor in that moment from a different take. And so they actually crop the shot in order to get both of the performances in the one wide shot, because it's a wide shot. The reason I bring this up is because I think it speaks to the challenge, the blessing and the curse of technology. Technology allows you to do a lot of stuff. But I think there's something, especially speaking as an actor, there's something that happens in acting, in moments, that is not, if you're doing it right, it shouldn't be false. It should feel like the truth. And when you're sort of fabricating moments that didn't happen because you like this person's performance, now that's editing, right? I mean, you're putting it together, but I think there's something else that happens when you're literally taking a moment that was, in the middle of this, in this shot, and then on this shot, I want this person. Now we've got things that are organically sort of happening that weren't there. And I wonder, and the reason I bring it up is because I wonder if some of that, having that massive amount of control, because in the old days you would be like, I can't use this take because this actor sucked in this one, but this actor was great, but I still can't use it.
Are you saying, did Lucas need somebody other than a yes man around him?
Well,
the answer is yes.
That's a bigger question. Although there are some people who say that actually Rick McCallum was not just a yes man. I think he was stuck in a producing role that was sort of that of the producer, like a line producer. Even though he was a producer, he was that they're there to carry out and just make it happen. Whereas in the original films, what was it, Gary Kurtz, and they were there to be like, no, that's not a great idea, and this is why that's not a great idea. And I think that was different. And I think he needed someone to say, no, I don't think we need to crop the shot. I think we need to pick a take that's good for, I guess my question is, does that make it better? I don't know. Is it a good editing tool to employ? I mean, maybe. I guess it depends on the situation. It's nice to have options. I just think in general, you don't always, having all the options and all of the control, sometimes you need to go with, when is it working? when is it really work? I mean, there's times in the editing room where you have to save something. I've done that. I'm sure you've done that. You know, all editors have done that. You know, you save it through cuts, you save it through reactions, you say whatever, right? But then there's other times where it relies on some performance and the skills of those on the screen. And either you got it or you didn't.
Well, it doesn't sound like he directs like Eastwood does. Like Eastwood's been working with the same guys forever. Editor Joel Cox and the music, they're all the same guys.
Right.
So he doesn't even have a monitor. He just watches the actors. If he likes what he saw, he just goes, "Did you get it?" And they go, "Yep, moving on."
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
I've
shot for directors like that.
Yeah,
that
Alexander
you
Payne
know.
does that too. Apparently,
Yeah.
like he's right next to the camera. You will always see his face looking in and just kind of being there and wanting to see if he's going to get everything he wants.
Right.
You know, and then he knows if he sees it, and then he trusts that they got it.
Right.
You know, where it sounds like they were manipulating a little too much after the fact.
Yeah.
Paul Martin Smith, never heard of him, is the editor, co-credited with Ben Burt.
Oh, interesting. Oh, so it was Ben Burt. Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how much he had actually edited.
I never knew he was a film editor.
I knew
thought
that he
was such
edited
a sound editor.
I feel like he edited some of the other ones, and maybe was the solo editor on maybe Revenge of the Sith. We'll have to look that up, but when we get there. But yeah,
Speaking of editing, there were never any. People will tell you otherwise, but there were technically never any special editions of the prequels.
Yeah.
But, however, I think if each new iteration of them, Lucas changed something. Because he
Yes.
just got so damn used to it. Oh, I'm going to tweak this just a little
Right.
bit, or I'm going to make this a little different. So when it comes out on VHS, it's one way. When it comes out on DVD, it's another. When it comes out on Blu-ray, final tweaking here. And
Right.
then the anniversary 3D. Oh, we're going to do this now that it's coming back out. You know, it's like, ugh.
Well, actually, that concept got me thinking, was I ever able to, and will I ever be able to see what I actually saw in the theater that opening day?
I don't know.
I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, because, even like the Yoda thing, like they changed out Yoda from being a puppet to being CG once they got the CG more perfected.
Like in going into 2, or they revisited 1 and
They
added them in?
revisited 1.
Yeah,
There's a comparative online. Somebody did it that shows the Yoda from like the original 99 release to.
Well, he didn't
the
want to
one
work
that-
with Muppets, right? Or he didn't employ them for some reason.
I
He
don't
got a
know.
different company, and then it didn't look as good, and then we all were not surprised.
Right. Well, then it's a little tough to how 900 years old, and now he's 870. How different do you look in 30 years after you're like over 800? I mean, I don't know, and you're green, and you don't have a lot of
700. I bet you kind of look about the same.
there's a give and take. There's a give and take for sure. So,
And then if you could change one thing, what would you change?
oh wow, one thing.
Presumably, I guess it would be one thing that would make a massive difference. I would have Han Solo in it. Han Solo was missing. I mean,
Of the film or of how it was made, or that's such a big
Anything.
question. Okay, I would say the script.
Yeah, I would have a Han Solo element. I think that's what they're trying to do with Poe Dameron. Didn't quite work. But
Yeah.
But the prequels were sorely missing Han Solo. They were either rigidy, uptighty Jedi guys,
Yeah.
or naive or evil. Or there wasn't much in between.
I actually kind of, I really kind of wish they hadn't killed off Qui-Gon so quickly. I mean, not only is Liam Neeson just fantastic to watch, his character was interesting, and honestly, he kind of did have a little bit of that. I mean, he was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to do what I want to do, which is kind of a Han Solo quality. One final question.
Yes.
Should this movie have been made? Should we have seen the prequels at all?
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll give it a solid yes. All right, so that's it. Let's put a wrap on our second Countdown to 9 podcast. And please come back the 15th of every month. And don't forget, the last show of our run will post 5 days before the release of episode 9. And again, we'll give you updates on that film as they come out. Once again, I'm Paul Preston.
I'm Sean Blodgett.
And between episodes, don't forget to follow us at facebook.com/countdown-to-9, at countdown-to-9 on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can get the show at YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and of course, themovieguys.com. Also, just for fun, don't forget to go to digitalmindproductions.com.
And creativemotionentertainment.com.
And that is a wrap on the Phantom Menace. Join us next month as we take a deep dive into Attack of the Clones, who neither attacked, and they were also good guys. We'll get to the bottom of that. Until April, Sean, I love you.
I know.